Hi everybody. In this video I'm going to take you through the online labs document and explain a bit about the online labs. Again, this is not a replacement for you actually reading the document. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. So start off at my website and click on online labs, and that'll take you to the document. All right. So there are some learning outcomes, and yes, it's important to do this for a number of reasons. I'm going to be talking about the theories in the lectures. You're going to be reading about the theories in the textbook, but this is your way of getting some hands-on experiential learning. You're also going to develop your scientific research, data visualization, which means graphic, digital literacy, and written communication skills. And yes, those are all important to your future. All right. I am going to get you to go to a bunch of different free websites. Now, there may be logins required, but it is all completely free, and you will be submitting your answers to some questions and graphs and things, screenshots in eClass. We do prefer PDF submissions, but there are a number of different formats that are okay. Apple Pages is not okay. eClass will choke on that, and to us it'll appear as if you've submitted nothing. Fortunately, Apple Pages can let you save things in PDF format. All right. It is your responsibility to make sure that your lab has been submitted. After you successfully submit it in eClass, you will immediately get an email to confirm that. Look for that email. If you do not get that email within about a minute or 5 or 10, go back to eClass and make sure that it has been properly submitted. Again, it is your responsibility to make sure that it is properly submitted. There are marks assigned, as you will see coming up. You do not have to go to any external sources. That's not what this is about. This is not showing off how well you can Google. It's not about using PsycInfo. You do not need to refer to any external sources in your lab. If you do refer to external sources, it's not going to give you a higher mark, okay? The marks are going to be based on your understanding of concepts, and what we want to do is know what's going on in your head. We don't want to know what you can go out there and find, okay? So some of the questions are going to deal with some logical thinking. So based on the knowledge that you have, can you put things together? Can you synthesize your knowledge together in order to answer some of the questions? All right. I have given you the due dates, and I'll show you them again. The labs are due at the end of class time. Okay, the labs are not due at 11:59 p.m. on the due date. Okay, so please be aware of that. If your lab is late, there is 1 mark deducted per 24-hour period. And what I mean by that is if you submit it 1 second late, that's 1 mark off. If you submit it 23 hours and 59 minutes late, that's still only 1 mark off. If you submit it 24 hours and 1 minute past the deadline, then that's a 2nd mark off. Hope that makes sense. Please, 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 do not go into eClass after the due date and have a look-see at your assignment. There's nothing to see. Don't go in there. Don't resubmit it. If you do, eClass will mark it as late. If you're looking through it and go, oh, I should have put a comma in there, I'll just upload this. eClass is only going to take the last submission that you uploaded, and that's going to be showing up as when you submitted it. Doesn't matter if you submitted it like a day before it's due, it will only show us the last submission. So do not upload the assignment again after the due date, or you will get a late penalty. Don't go emailing us your labs. Okay, we're using eClass for this. Now, eClass will accept late submissions up to 7 days past the due date. And by that point in time, you've probably been deducted all of the marks, so you'll get a 0. If you are submitting it that late, like what's going on? Sounds like you're having some serious problems. You might want to reach out to me. If there is some reason why you cannot do the online labs, if there's a court order forbidding you from using the internet, for example, you need to let me know before the Lab 1 due date. Now you will have to use some technology. Technical problems are not an acceptable excuse for a late or incomplete lab. Now that being said, if eClass is down for literally everybody for like a day right before the deadline, okay, we can have some flexibility there. But if you're like, oh, my computer crashed or something and I couldn't hand it in, that's your responsibility to make sure that you get everything working. Make backups, people. As soon as you finish your lab, all the important data and whatnot, back it up, okay? Put it in Google Docs, okay, please. For some of the labs, we want some documentation or proof that you've actually done the lab. So in some cases, there's actual data. In other cases, well, we need you to take a screenshot. So if you don't know how to take a screenshot, there's a lot of websites out there. There's YouTube videos that will tell you how to do this on basically any device at all. So there's actually a website called takeascreenshot.org. Okay, so there's instructions on how to do that in literally any kind of device. Some labs require you to make a graph. So I suppose you could do it with paper and pencil, but that's not really a 21st century skill, okay? We want you to be developing skills using something like Microsoft Excel, which you should have free access to as a student, or if not, LibreOffice Calc. Google Sheets, kind of sort of can do graphing. I don't recommend it. It doesn't have nearly as much features as Excel or LibreOffice Calc. So I would kind of stay away from Google Sheets. I'm not actually recommending it. You might just want to try making a graph just right now, throw in some numbers and try to make a line graph just so you get a feeling for how it works. The worst time to learn how to use a spreadsheet program to make a graph is 5 minutes before the deadline. Okay, don't do that. Little bit of fine print basically saying don't cheat, don't plagiarize, don't do that, okay, please. Do you know the difference between citing, quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing? Are you sure? Do you have kind of a vague idea, or are you absolutely crystal clear on it? So I do have some helpful documents here for you to check out. Okay, this is version 1.10 of the online labs document. You might have gotten a copy that had draft over it. Okay, delete that. This is the up-to-date version. I may be updating this as with the syllabus if there are errors or tiny things that I need to change. So keep an eye on that version number. Try to use the most recent version possible. Okay, we finally get to the actual labs themselves, starting with number 1. All right, due Friday, September 10th, again at the end of our, quote, class time, okay? So I've tried to give you detailed instructions, okay, really, really detailed, okay, because I realize you might not have been to these websites before, don't know how they work, okay? Read through the instructions first before doing the lab, okay? That's kind of important to do that so you get a sense of what is this actually all about? How much time should I devote to it? The labs themselves shouldn't take you too long. It's not like you got to be sitting at your computer for 2 hours collecting data. All right. If these websites that I have you go to are down, I don't have any control over them. You can let me know, and then I'll see what I can do. Now, for this first lab, I'm going to want you to take some of your data and calculate something called d prime, which I will explain in the lectures a little bit. And here is a calculator for that d prime. So again, follow the instructions carefully. I also outline the kind of data that you should be collecting and which ones you should be including in your submission. So for the first one, we do want a screenshot. Okay, now you don't get any marks for that screenshot. It's just kind of proof that you actually did the lab. The marks are going to come from the question, so I show you the marks breakdown here. So each question here is worth 2 marks. Try to give a full and complete answer. It's not like more words are better, not necessarily. You could have a very short answer and still get full marks. All right, so that's lab number 1. Lab number 2, it's a pretty fun, easy, very quick one called Mapping Your Blind Spot. Once again, going to a different website. Again, we will ask you to save an image of your results. Could take a screenshot, but there's a couple of ways of doing that. again, some questions to answer. Question 3, visual search, once again, going to the same website as in the first lab. So you should be kind of familiar with it. You might need to set aside a little bit more time to do this one. In this one, we also want you to create a line graph. So again, look very carefully at the kinds of things that we're asking you to submit. You are going to get some marks for the line graph on this one, so 3 marks. Number 4 is going to another different website. It's called the Open Psychology Lab, run by the American Psychological Association. You will have to create a login, so just be aware of that. This is not going to cost you anything. I would ask you to enter this class ID. So it's just a way that I can kind of gather together data, and basically you kind of have to enter that if you want to save your data. It's a little bit cumbersome because when you're done the experiment, instead of the results kind of popping up, it just saves it very quietly. And then there's some extra steps involved in getting your data back out again. My apologies for that. This is the way it works. Unfortunately, we're kind of stuck with that. What you will get is a spreadsheet. I say, please do not submit this with your lab. Okay, we do not want that. What we do want is a scatter plot or line graph. Which one? A scatter plot or a line graph? You know what? It doesn't matter. It's up to you. You get to choose. Okay, so for the questions, once again, having you go to a couple of possible different websites. Really no difference between these two. You can use either one. I just wanted to give you some options here. Or if you're pretty handy with Microsoft Excel, try your hand at the correlation function. And we want your correlation between a couple of variables here. And then some more questions. Again, these questions are not like, where's the answer in the textbook? It's not like that. Again, it's about what do you know and can you apply it to this thing that I'm throwing at you, okay? Don't try like Googling the answers. It's not that kind of question, okay? You have to think. I don't want to think. Yes, you have to think to get the answers. That's not fair. Hey, you signed up for the course. Number 5 is about size constancy. Yet again, another different lab. I'm just getting you to bounce around the whole internet here. Number 6 also gets you to go to the ISLE website there. I did have some problems with Google Chrome with this lab, so just something to be aware of. You might want to use a different browser. So the last 2 labs are based on auditory perception. If you can, wear headphones for doing this lab and try to do it in a quiet location as much as possible. And then the final last one on perfect pitch. Really easy and really quick. I hope it's the most fun one of all to kind of round things out. Okay, I don't have a grading rubric for that. I haven't gotten around to doing that. I haven't found that I've needed one. So the TAs who are marking this are going to be giving you some feedback on your answers, kind of things that maybe you should have included or didn't include, these kinds of things. So hopefully that's enough feedback for you, and hopefully that will be clear. I am asking you things like about independent and dependent variables. For a 3rd year course, I am assuming that you know what those are. So if you're waiting for me to lecture on what those are, yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't feel the need to go over that in a 3rd year course. So if you're a bit rusty on that, you might want to search around and find a good website that explains the difference between independent and dependent variables. Now, you might find that eClass will tell you, your mark for lab number 1 is ready. And then you go there and you can't find it. That's because I haven't released the marks. What I do is I wait until all the labs have been graded. I go through the grading. I ensure there's some reliability of marking because we do have 2 different TAs doing the marking. And then I will release the marks. eClass is kind of stupid. And as soon as someone enters a mark for you, it will shoot off this email saying, oh, there's a mark for you, but you won't be able to get it until I release it. So please be patient. I think this is the most fair way of doing it so that everybody gets their marks at exactly the same time. It may take a while for the TAs to do the marking. Don't wait to do lab 2 until you get your marks for part 1. There's no reason to wait. You can go ahead, and as long as you've read the section of the textbook and maybe I've talked about it in the lectures, you can go ahead and get started with that. Now, in the instructions, I do point you to certain things that you should be reading in the textbook. It's not like, read these 7 chapters before. No, it's like just a few pages. This is like the least you can do, like literally, and you really should read that. Otherwise, when you're doing the lab and answering the questions, you're probably going to be a little bit lost. So these labs are meant to tie into the course content. After the labs have been marked and the marks released, I'm not going to have like a video explaining what we were looking for in the labs. Again, I'm hoping that the feedback from the TAs is going to be kind of self-explanatory. I find that people do fairly well on these labs. It's not like I'm shooting for 52% class average. If everybody does really well, that's great. And then maybe next semester I'll make the questions a little bit harder. I guess we'll see. And I hope that these are fun, and I hope that it will help solidify some of the concepts that you're learning about in the course by actually having this experiential learning component. I won't be asking any questions from the labs specifically on the exams, so don't look for that. If you have any questions or concerns about the lab, please put those in the discussion forum. Thanks for listening.